Oh my gosh, waveforms. There we go.
Nice.
It is very cool. It's like the future.
Yeah,
It's like all the 80s grid
It's
stuff.
fascinating to watch the waveforms of yourself as you are speaking.
Yeah, it's great. Like, I like it.
Yeah.
It's enjoyable.
Welcome to part 2
of Movie Podcast with Jay.
Yeah. Yep.
So we're gonna pick back up still
Of the whole ball of wax.
on the whole ball of wax. WBX Internet Radio.
Since you have wax in the title, you really should be recording to like old analog, like a wax record.
A tape-to-tape recorder.
No,
and
older.
Wax
Yeah.
recorder.
Yeah.
Or the tubes. They used to record to tubes.
That's right. Yeah, like a wax tube. You should be recording to a wax tube and then digitizing it.
Be as hipster as possible.
Yeah. Yep. And then send out the notice of the new episode via telegram to all of your mailing list.
That'd be a good way to do it. That'd be good.
Yeah. So we were talking about, you were trying to talk about how film analysis develops the brain and develops people's ways of thinking. Well, I used this opportunity to just talk about my favorite parts of every movie you bring up.
And that's right, because it's like, I feel like to bring it all back before we get to the other two movies I have on my list for things that I feel like have helped my ability to analyze things.
Yeah.
I think there are two sides of it. I think that it does affect and help your ability to analyze other things, people, and situations.
Okay, like bring that around for me. Bring that one around for me. Like explore that a little bit.
Well, again, with her, like, something that I really liked, again, to circle back that, is when Olivia Wilde's very short role in that movie, her whole taking place is this very odd situation.
Yeah.
Where she's, like, she seems really normal, and she's really straightforward, and then she's kind of like a massive bag of horny hormones, and, like, that's fine. That's great. I won't go on about how much I like that woman, but I'm just saying.
Olivia Wilde?
That's great. Oh, she's,
absolutely.
Yeah, she's my, like, number one pick. Like,
yeah. She was my pre-Brie.
Your what?
Pre-Alison Brie. Olivia Wilde was the one.
Oh, Alison Brie is your current...
Oh, the celebrity crush? Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I blame the OC. I remember seeing trailers for it, and it's like, who's that? And I
Oh,
watched,
man. My gosh.
Yeah.
That's old school.
And then after that was the Black Donnellys, and I watched Black Donnellys for all of, unfortunately, the one season it got, but that meant that she would have time for House.
Yes.
And then she ended up on House.
I never remember seeing her prior to House as 13.
Most people didn't, unless you watched the OC or the Black Donnellys, which is only so many people.
Well, and then, like, shortly after 13, like, Hollywood was like, yes, give me your Olivia Wilde.
And she flooded and still is. She's in so much stuff.
Yeah, well, that's great. She should be in everything.
So
she was great in her, and she
was, and so
the way her character turns is so.
And that's what I was going to get to. So she's all over Theodore. It seems really genuine, and it is, but it turns into this thing that you don't know until something happens. Either something is said or something is done, in which case this is both.
Yeah.
Where you know there's something wrong. Not wrong with her, just something is wrong. And I think that's an important distinction too. She's not some crazy person, but it's this is what I mean when I think I learned something in that I knew it, but when you see it explicit in this way, you sort of remember something. And I've seen this quote all over the place, and I think that this is one way that it was shown. Everyone's fighting a battle that you can't see.
Yeah.
And I would imagine that her character was fighting, who is unnamed, I believe. No, maybe she's named, I forget, but anyway.
She does have a name,
yeah. Her character, or whatever the hell her name is, she was probably fighting battle of being self-conscious, of trust.
Lonely.
Of loneliness.
For sure.
Of desperation.
Yep.
And overall, probably depression. And she, instead of voicing that, she freaked out and pushed it back onto Theodore, and Theodore really, very seriously, he did nothing wrong.
No.
And I think that was a very rare thing to show.
Yeah.
Was that the woman was the one who was doing the thing that was kind of shitty.
Right.
And I like that. I think that was different. I think
Zooey
that was
Deschanel
accurate.
also specializes in doing those roles, actually.
Days of Summer.
And All the Real Girls.
Yeah.
Like, was depressing as a mother effer.
and I appreciate that because I haven't dated girls like that, but I have known people who did date girls who it was a genuinely nice guy that I knew who, like, seriously, when I knew independently both sides of the story,
Sure.
when I knew the girl was at fault. I'm not saying anything, not bashing women or whatever, but it's the point that people are flawed.
I don't know. Over the
Human
course of
beings.
these 2 podcasts, like you've attacked the Bechdel test. You talked about misogyny. I don't know, Sellers. The evidence is starting to stack up over
Are you
here,
an
buddy.
anti-feminist?
I'm just saying. Maybe it's time to take a hard Olivia Wilde look at yourself.
Yeah, there you go. But no, yeah, and it sort of made me remember everyone, even people who seem bright and cheery and appear to be in this amazing state of excitement all the time, aren't necessarily actually that.
Well, there's
way.
a couple ways you can look at that instance too. For people who haven't seen the movie Her, like, I realize this is a really long aside about just one tiny scene in it, but like there's 2 ways you can kind of look at her turn, because a lot of people would look at that as being like, oh, you know, like a lot of guys would look at that because she was just making out with him a second before, you know. They would look at her doing that and then turning around and being like, you're weird. That kind of whole flip, like as like hot and cold, or like a tease or something like that. Whereas I think it's a reflection of her kind of not liking the person she was portraying herself to be in those earlier moments. Like, it was a more extroverted, a more easy, I'll say easy, like version of who she is.
Yes.
And then reflecting on that, she just pushed that on to him, like you said.
Yes. Oh yeah.
And so like that kind, but we don't explore that because we meet her for 2 seconds, but you just see how hard it is for people to communicate. That's what that conveys.
Yeah.
And it's, oh God, that movie's so good.
It's good. It's really good. And that's one of those things. Name another movie that did that particular scene. I know, again, you're right. Yes, we're going on a lot for a scene that's 10 minutes.
All the Real Girls did that.
Okay, one.
Yeah.
It's very few. And that's my point, is that like
I hated that movie so much because of how bad it made me feel.
I like when movies force me to say, or not say, think, look at this thing, you understand it, but have you ever really thought about it this way before?
Yeah.
And the whole movie's chock full of those moments, and that was another one of those moments.
I love that.
And it made me step back and think about some people when someone freaked out on me just on a friend to friend basis, whether it was another guy or if it was a girl. And it has helped me remember, well, you know, if someone's freaking out on you and you know that you're not in the wrong, but they're still upset about something, it's probably not all you. There might be more to it. Like the oversimplified term for it would be baggage.
Yeah, yeah.
And again, I do think that's a little reductive, but that's basically what it is, that everybody has something that will inhibit them in some way, and it's nice to know, to be aware of that, to have to perceive that. Everyone should be able to perceive that in other people. And Theodore didn't do anything wrong. She definitely caught him off guard, and she sprung a proverbial personality bear trap on him.
Yeah.
And he just kind of had to sit there and take it. But it was nice to know that he didn't actually do anything wrong, and that's what made the scene so interesting. And I liked seeing that.
Really specific. It comes back to specificity again for me, because that's a really specific choice for her character to make.
Yeah.
That goes unexplained.
Oh yeah.
And like again with specificity, I was just watching Daredevil, the series on Netflix, like the other day. And just the tiniest little things, if you put something specific in instead of something a little bit vague, it changes the entire meaning of something to me. Like, this guy was trying to get somebody at the hospital to do something that he wanted to do, you know, and it's just just a normal guy. He's not a superhero. He's not trying to beat it out of them or anything. He's just this normal guy who's trying to get a special favor for someone that his wife who's in the hospital. So when he goes to meet the head of the hospital, he's like, talks to her, they agree on something, and then on his way out, he hands her this bag, and he's like, here, I got this for you. She's like, what's this? And he's like, it's the cookie from the place that you like. She's like, oh, okay. Now that is a nice touch, but it's too vague. If he had said the name of the place that she likes, we would understand that it's a
from
place
Sassy Bakes.
Yeah,
from
it's a place that they both know. When he says from that place that you like, what it means to me is A, the writer isn't thinking hard enough, either that, or B, the character doesn't care enough to remember the name of the place that she likes. You know?
Yeah.
So just that little bit of specificity would have completed that interaction.
Sure. Yeah.
On the thing of movies changing lives, Magnolia is the one for me.
Yeah. Oh
okay?
my god.
I had two breakdowns over 2 viewings of that movie. Right after the first time I saw that movie, I had my friend pull the car over to the side of the road because I had to have a panic attack on the side of the road because the movie was so good. And I would never be able to do anything as good as it. The second time I saw that movie, I broke up with a girl because I thought, you know what, we're not doing what we want to be doing. We're settling, like that kind of thing. And like so like Magnolia did that for me a couple times. And then she hated Magnolia after that because it was just like
the thing that was associated that ended the relationship.
Yeah. It's like ending a relationship over friggin' watching a movie. Like, and so
I mean, it's one of those you can learn things about yourself and others and the world because of a movie.
Absolutely.
It's not I don't like that's why I think it is once again reductive to say that movies are strictly entertainment because many times they are. But I feel like they're more than that. I just like books are more than that. Like how many people would put books under entertainment?
Oh, yeah, I mean
like to a point, but
no, I mean I feel like the right people do.
No, right, but I mean, like I feel like there's a difference in perception between like the purpose of movies and the purpose of books.
No, sure, but I mean, I think that's also because like so much of our early reading experience is what's assigned to us, whereas so much of our early movie experience is what we choose to watch. So I mean, it's the difference between being forced to do a thing and choosing to do a thing, which very much influences the way that you perceive that thing itself. Like, I was just listening to you ever listen to Mark Maron's podcast, WTF? Okay, so he's a comedian. He interviews everybody from all walks of life, kind of like what you're doing here, about whatever their thing is. He always kind of brings it back to stand-up comedy and relates to things that way because he's a stand-up comic. But he was just talking to... Nope, lost the thread. Because I got off talking about Mark Maron now. So who was he talking to? I don't know. No, I can't remember what we were talking about.
Oops. Okay. Either. Well, we can move on to Fight Club.
Oh yeah. Well, we should always move on to Fight Club.
Fight Club. Honestly, it's funny though. Fight Club is basically the shortest of all the things that I've got. It really, honestly, and it breaks down to you don't. Everyone. It's funny that I brought up going back to her, but it kind of ties back into, again, everyone's fighting some battle that you don't know of, and sometimes you yourself aren't aware of what's wrong with yourself. Like I think there are 2 parts to Fight Club in regard to the character's perception of themselves and their perception of other people's perception of them.
Yeah,
that's self and meta.
Yeah,
and meta being how other people perceive you. And he was so wrapped up in his own head. It wasn't even like he was being selfish. It's just something that just kind of happened.
Yeah,
I feel like I can relate to that because there's so many things in my life that, like, I'm not saying it happened to me.
Yeah. But
there are definitely, everybody does something without realizing it, and it just happens. Very little things we do in our life are these explicit, conscious, I know I'm going, like, when I knew that my...
So much of what we choose to do is beneath the surface.
Yeah.
Thing that we have no idea about. Yeah. That we completely don't understand or intend.
And, like... I think about the only good example I can think of 2 of, like, I know I'm going to change who I am as a person, was one time when I was told that my handwriting was too tiny. It wasn't sloppy, it was very small. My E's were like the size of pinheads. I could just be like, Luke. So I looked at my dad's handwriting, and he writes basically everything in uppercase, but not actually. Like, an uppercase letter, if you were to look at lined paper, would take a hole from the bottom of the line to the top.
Yeah.
But his lowercase letters, he wrote as uppercase, but half the size. Yeah, and I really like that.
I do that too sometimes.
I love it. It makes for really legible stuff. Even if I'm writing sloppy, it's still legible.
Yeah.
And that was one time I made a specific choice of myself. And the other is, like, trying to exercise.
That, you know what, though? That is a really hard thing to get into, too. And it gives you a huge amount of respect for the people who actually look, like, ripped.
Oh my god!
Because I thought, they just take the time to exercise a little bit, but it takes so much work to lose weight and get in shape that it's incredible. The amount of running or activity that you have to do in order to burn a significant amount of calories is a lot.
It's massive.
Yeah,
and then it's what you eat.
Yeah.
On top of that,
the diet is a huge part of it.
Yeah.
A huge part of it.
Yeah, it's the other half. It's one half is exercise, the other half is what you put into your friggin' body.
And the problem is, the more you cut out the calories. Hi.
It's Elizabeth.
How are you?
Good.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. I'm Jake.
Hi.
So the more that you are cutting out the calories, the harder it is to find the energy to exercise. Yeah, you're right, says Sellers. And then I say, yeah. You know what else? No, I'm sorry. He's going to close the door, so I thought I'd do his part as well. This is a good time to tell you how brilliant Sellers thinks I am. Just really, it's kind of like
It's all lies.
It's like an ex machina.
It's all
when
it's just Jake solves all my problems for me. It's beautiful.
You saw Ex Machina, right?
Oh yeah, actually I saw it with Elizabeth, my girlfriend who just walked in. Yeah, no, that was one of our dates.
I love that. It's not. Was it a good date movie?
It was awesome. We had a lot to talk about after
For
it.
this relationship, I think yes.
Awesome. No, I love that movie so much. It's probably my number one of the year so far, currently.
It's so real.
Yeah.
It's so weirdly realistic.
Well, I just love how the scientist, I forget what his name is in it now. I just love how he's presented, his character.
The guy who makes everybody?
Yeah.
Oh.
Super in shape, alcoholic, like clever, witty,
he's practically
hilarious.
a smart frat boy.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of what he is.
But he's hilarious too.
He is, it's
like I
true.
just love, but he's also just terrifying.
Oh my
Oh god, his character's the best. I love it.
Third act, so scary.
Yeah.
So,
I'm gonna hop back actually real quick because I remember my thing. Because what Mark Maron said in a recent podcast we were listening to was that he doesn't read for entertainment, and I thought, oh my god, he only reads for like, this is literature I should consume. This is poetry. It's supposed to be profound.
So Moby Dick and Walt Whitman.
Yeah, like all aspirational or philosophy. He reads a lot of philosophy, but like it's like
Socrates.
What, you know, if that's what you're reading for, how are you ever going to truly enjoy the process of reading? If it's all aspirational,
I have an answer.
how?
He won't.
Yeah, exactly.
Like you just don't.
It just makes me sad for him.
Well, yeah,
that he's
'cause
not going to have that experience.
Yeah, because life isn't all about work.
Oh, because he was talking to fucking Daniel Radcliffe. He was talking about how he's never read the Harry Potter books because he doesn't read for pleasure.
Dude, like, that's like saying you don't eat for pleasure.
Right?
Like that doesn't mean you should do it all the time. But you're gonna tell me that you and someone would be nuts to think you never even occasionally indulged and ate cake or pudding, or some pizza, something like. Don't. That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy town.
Yeah. By the way, just a little
Population
dessert interlude. I recently at a restaurant had. Everybody should have this. It's incredible. Rineless brie, in between 2 slices of pound cake grilled like a grilled cheese, topped with whipped cream. It's called a dessert grilled cheese, and it's amazing.
I'm gonna make a movie now called Jake and the Grilled Cheese.
Yeah, you should.
It's like James and the Giant
You gotta
Peach.
slice the pound cake a little bit thinner though to really get it grilled with the cheese and everything.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll keep that in mind, listeners.
Yeah. Okay. So what's next? Scanner Darkly.
I really didn't expect.
By the way,
you to...
Fight Club is one of the greatest movies of all time. It's
good
absolutely on my top 3.
Yeah, Chuck Palahniuk himself said in the David Fincher and Chuck Palahniuk commentary. I'm sorry if I'm saying his last name wrong. I never remember how to say it properly.
I think that's correct.
I thought that was correct. Chuck P. Chuck himself says, and I remember it's at the point in the movie where Jack, with quotes, is being dragged by himself, almost thrown down the stairs with the mirror and all that. The building's about to blow up. End of the movie.
Yeah.
It was during that point in their commentary together that Chuck said, "You took what I wrote that was crazy and all over the place, and you organized it and put the like parts together and made it like you made it just a little bit more cohesive than what I made." He's like, "Yeah, it made
Fincher
sense
and
as a book."
Yules, right?
No, right. But I'm saying like he was saying that to him because he was the only person who was there. But still, like it's the fact that he fully admits to like, yes, I enjoyed what I created and other people do too, but as a movie it would have made no sense.
Not at all.
If you took the book and strictly made it film, it would be jumping between normal and weird shit.
You can't do that with his books.
No,
because
hell no.
his style is so theoretical and it's all so like It's almost like a trade manual, his books. They kind of break down in that, like, this is how this works, this is how this works kind of way.
Yes.
You know? And Fight Club, it's funny that it was during that section, because the only mistake I find in Fight Club is during that sequence where they're fighting in the parking garage.
What mistake is there?
The only mistake for me is that the whole time, it's the only time that we see what should be an outside perspective of something that shouldn't be possible.
Oh,
like
him
the
dragging
dragging.
himself.
Yeah.
Oh, no,
he
that's
should not
true.
be able to be dragged up backwards. He could have dragged himself on his knees, but dragging himself backwards like that, bent up like that, is impossible. And we saw it through a security camera footage.
Oh, that's true. But I'll take it. That's
No. I mean, it's a little thing. It's not saying the only mistake
sure,
for
sure.
me. For me, everything
Sure.
else can be justified in character.
Sure, I
Yeah.
can agree with that. Sure. No, I agree. And then Scanner Darkly. I remember I had a very, I think it's a Richard Linklater
Yeah,
film.
it is.
And it's rotoscoped.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. Let me be more specific, because rotoscoping can mean lots of things. It's paint rotoscoped. So they filmed it. It's like Waking Life, for anybody who's seen Waking Life, and then they painted over every single frame.
Yep.
And
So like it swims too. Like the animation of it swims, and that's part of the idea of Scanner Darkly.
And I'll get to why I think they did that, because they've never, Richard Linklater nor anyone else in that movie has ever given a direct answer to why they did that.
Sure.
And I think I have a reason. I think I have some reasoning behind that too. So Scanner Darkly is about. We totally should have been giving synopsis for all this other stuff, but we didn't.
Oh,
Sorry.
anybody who listens to the podcast and hasn't seen Fight Club, then it's like.
No, I know.
Yeah.
Or Jurassic Park.
Yeah, but
yeah,
all
all this
her
stuff
we
just-
described pretty well.
If you
I
don't know
think.
what we're talking about, stop listening. Go watch it. Come back.
Yeah.
Scanner Darkly is about, at its base, a bunch of people who do really heavy drugs. And then within that, one guy who's posing as a drug addict, who is a narcotics cop, trying to catch these people and find this massive distributor of this drug in the future called death. It's highly addictive. It's in pill form, blah, blah, blah.
Is that Philip K. Dick?
It
Scanner
is.
Darkly?
Yeah, Scanner
Yeah.
Darkly is a Philip K. Dick novel. It's also Total Recall and
Yeah.
do Electric Sheep Dream of Clone, or do
Blade Runner. Yeah.
do Electric Sheep.
Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep.
There we go. Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? Sorry, which became Blade Runner and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
So, on the film analysis of things, the first time I watched it, I think when it came out, and I didn't see it in theaters and DVD. I think I was 12 or 13. I was in grade school.
Yeah. We saw it in theaters because I'm significantly older than you.
Yeah. Not that much. Like 10 years.
Are you 25?
I'm 24.
Yeah. Okay. So.
So almost.
Yeah.
So I remember watching it because a friend of my sister's who I got along with, his name was Kyle. He suggested it to me because I had seen Total Recall and liked Total Recall, despite the fact they're two very different movies. Still Philip K. Dick, but he said, "Oh, if you like that, you might like this." And when I finished, I went, "What did I just see?"
Yeah.
Because I hadn't seen anything that abstract. It's not even that abstract, but I hadn't seen anything that weird. I hadn't seen that kind of story before. It didn't help. I hadn't read the book.
Yeah.
And I didn't really know what to do with it. And then I saw it a couple of years later, and then it made a ton more sense. Like, it was only like 3 or 4 years later. I was like 16. And suddenly it was like, poof. And it was in that moment then when I started to question things like, why was it paint rotoscoped?
Yeah.
And I started to look up any interview I could about like what any of their saying. And they always give these really weird runaround answers that don't really make a whole lot of sense. And what I chalk it up to, in regard to film analysis, again, not like real life analysis, just the standalone, what purpose does it serve for the story? Like, why should you film something and then spend 2 years animating this thing that you just filmed?
Sure.
I think on a functional level, it helped the scramble suit. There's this thing called the scramble suit where it destroys your visual identity. It's just like a plastic suit, so that Keanu Reeves is the main character in it, who's playing this narcotics cop. It's so that their employers don't even know who he is, so that they won't have a bias when it comes to trying to figure out which person's doing what with the drugs and all the stuff. It
Your
makes sense if you
physical
see it.
appearance is constantly morphing. It's ever subtly morphing. Although they do it way less subtly in A Scanner Darkly. Like, it's huge shifts. Like,
Right.
second by second.
Right, and it looks beautiful.
Yeah, it's
and
cool.
I think on a technical level, it would have looked like garbage if it was computer generated.
Yeah, well, absolutely.
Computer animation with this effect would have looked like trash.
Yeah.
In my opinion, end of story. I don't think there's any argument for that.
Especially in the mid 2000s too. I mean, it just would not have. Yeah.
It would have fallen apart very quickly, and I think this actually. I'm glad I pieced this together just now. It's a point that I like to talk about is visual effects that serve for storytelling.
Yeah.
I was just watching the first Harry Potter with Elizabeth the other day, and one of these cool things that she pointed out was McGonagall changing into a cat. The first time you see it, it's just her shadow.
Yeah. That's cool.
And later they do show a full shot of it, but
Yeah,
it makes
when Harry and Ron are late for class.
Right, but the first time you see it is when they're dropping off baby Harry on the doorstep.
Yeah.
And you seeing that in shadow form, it's not showing off. It's playing it a little more quiet.
Well-
and it serves to show it's not talking about magic. No one has said the word magic at this point.
No.
But you get it
Yeah.
because of, in my opinion, based on that type of execution.
Well, and the execution of that was nice, but it comes up to one of my problems with this is just personal preference stuff. One of my problems with the Chris Columbus Potter world, which he established a lot of things really, really well.
He's the first three.
He's the first two.
Two? Oh, okay.
Yeah, Alfonso Cuarón is the third. But the that line reading Dumbledore does right before the morph is, "Hello, Professor McGonagall." Like it's so like weighted, so like that it doesn't feel that's not how Dumbledore would greet her.
No, that's so important.
It's so
like,
yeah.
That's how you greet a villain.
It's the way Khan introduces himself in Into Darkness, like overly important based on the audience's knowledge of who these people are instead of how the characters would react to each other in real life.
Yeah, no. I didn't realize that. I can agree with that completely because that doesn't like. It's not like when you showed up to. I wasn't. Hello, Jake. That's not how it went. No one says that to each other. That's a good point.
Yeah.
And
So
then,
it's just, I mean, and I understand that the events of that night were also very heavy.
true,
but
but no one would. You wouldn't, and you also wouldn't be like, "Hey, what up? High five."
Yeah, no.
But
yeah, it felt like here's the introduction to a movie.
right,
So,
right, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
and so again, so for the service, the purpose of again technical level stuff, I think that rotoscoping helped serve that function of the story. And further than that, more than just that thing that is the scramble suit, there are a lot of things that happen throughout the movie, hallucinations, general visualizations that aren't necessarily from drugs. It's Keanu Reeves remembering, it's a flashback and whatever else.
Yeah.
I feel like it helped create this. You were saying that with the scramble suit, everything's in motion. The whole movie is kind of in motion. Even the most still shots, there's
Absolutely.
still some motion going on. And now I myself, I don't do drugs, but I definitely drink. I love being drunk. And when you're drunk, everything is kind of swirling.
Okay.
Everything's a little bit like you're in a bouncy house and a
Yeah.
tilt-a-whirl at the same time. And I feel like my interpretation, I feel that the purpose of the rotoscoping was to
Make you feel a little
make
high.
you feel like the whole thing was this trippy experience.
Yeah, through the lens of drugs.
Yeah, and that's hard to do. That's really hard
Well,
to do.
no, I mean, Waking Life absolutely felt that way too.
Oh my God.
I mean, it's definitely got that kind of, it's that slacker except on drugs kind of feel.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, I mean, it's also just, he had recently started that technique, so he was looking for a fictional story, or I guess a plotted story that he could tell with it as well. And this is as good in any because of that suit.
Right, yeah, I think that was that's a hard call to make.
Yeah.
To like, hey, what thing can I do that I want to do this super, like, it's a very unique execution. Nobody does that sort of stuff.
No.
Nobody.
No.
And I think those are the only two movies I'm aware of that's done that thing.
Yeah, to that extent at least.
Yeah,
For
right,
sure.
right. In that full scope,
Yeah.
start to end, book-ended animation on top of
but
film.
I mean
Nobody's done that.
that's Linklater. You know, he's like, here's a concept. Let's explore it for more time than anybody's willing to do. You know, like,
It's okay because a full-length kaleidoscope of a movie is what I am glad that we've got.
Yeah,
Like, I
no,
love both of those
absolutely.
movies.
Richard Linklater is very much a good director. But his style choices are not the typical style choices a director makes.
And I'll take that. I like
Yeah.
it because
But it's a conventionally framed, conventionally directed thing with a huge style filter on it, you know?
right, and
It's-
I'll take that because I think that's what makes it accessible.
Yeah.
when you're not 13 years old and you're smart enough to interpret that sort of crap. and part of what I came to interpret later was that A Scanner Darkly, when a lot of people, I made it a point to like trying to show it to other people to see what they thought of it, and a lot of people also didn't know what to make of it, even when I had come to my own conclusion. And my conclusion is that it's kind of like Requiem for a Dream.
Yeah.
It's a story about addiction, but it's not necessarily about drugs.
Yeah, sure.
Each person, that's very much more so Requiem for a Dream, but even so, like, it's mostly about Keanu.
Yeah.
Mostly. The majority of that movie is about what he was doing with his life and how it fell apart because he kind of let it. Because what he wanted changed.
Sure.
And then he got addicted to something else because that other thing became boring. And that's ironic because he had everything, then lost everything, and then went back to it. And that's like, I really like that. And after that, after credits, I remembered watching and seeing that Philip K. Dick had dedicated it to a lot of people who were drug addicts, many of which were dead.
Sure.
And this is like another one that's pretty straightforward. It just kind of hit me really hard because I just went, oh my God, this is Philip K. Dick's anthem for all the people that he knew who needed help, and his way of saying, don't judge people who are addicted to drugs.
Yeah.
And I never did, but I just hadn't seen that. I have never seen that been done with that intent happening with The Form of Execution by Richard Linklater. The original intent of the story, and then how Linklater gave it to us, it makes a lot of sense. It's really beautiful in a very sad kind of way, and nothing really holds a candle in regard to how people view drug addicts and what their lives are like and what it means to they weren't great people. Like Robert Downey Jr.'s character is kind of an asshole, but it's still
most pre-Iron Man Robert Downey Jr.'s are.
Yeah, right. But it's still, I don't know. I thought it was an interesting. Talking about the reason part of why we like movies is because it shows us something that we're not familiar with, and that is a world I'm unfamiliar with. I'm not some heroin addict.
No,
and
I'm glad.
Me too.
Yeah,
and it just, I liked seeing that. I liked that idea. I liked how it was done, and it helped reinforce. I didn't learn anything new necessarily, but it reinforced the mindset that I had was that that people who are on drugs need help.
Yeah.
That they shouldn't be criminalized, that they should be reinstitutionalized, that they need our assistance. And the fact that Philip K. Dick wrote that, I think 30 plus years ago, is kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
Because that was, I don't know if that was necessarily pre-war on drugs, but that's a very bold thing to do. And I am inspired by that form of bold action to take. And I like that. I really like that.
Sure.
So that was my thing for Scanner Darkly.
Very good.
Part 3?
Yeah, part 3.
This will, without a doubt, be the easiest thing.
Yeah.
Not like everything else was difficult, but this, without a doubt, is definitely the easiest thing. Why in the world do we as human beings like anything about revenge, survival, and horror films?
Yeah. Well, because I think we can't say it as a blanket statement because so many people don't enjoy it.
True, but then let me rephrase, for those who do.
Yeah. And for us in particular, horror is a genre that I am particularly compelled by. Like, it's something that I find myself drawn to more than most other genres.
Same.
Anything where, and I think, it's easy to say like roller coaster ride. It's easy to say like adrenaline rush, that kind of stuff. But I think what it also comes down to, I'm a pretty sensitive person in terms of my movie watching.
Sure.
If a movie is half as effective as it means to be, it'll affect me. Like I cry at a lot of movies. I and I'm really scared in an effective, scary movie. And I think part of, in even books to a lesser degree, like are less visceral for me, but I can get scared during them. Pet Sematary being the one that scared me the most. But like I think part of it is about show me the danger so I know it when I see it.
Yeah. Oh, sure.
Show me, if I see all these horrible things happen, then I'll be better primed for if anything ever happens in my life.
It's funny that you bring up that up as your first thing, because I
think at the root of it.
Okay. Oh, that's fair. And I can agree with that. I can fully agree that I have said to myself you hear, and you're upstairs, and somebody goes, I'm at a friend's house, and we hear that downstairs, and somebody goes, what was that? I said, that's none of my damn business. That's what the fuck that is. You want to go find out? You go find out. I'm staying up here, and I'm gonna live.
Because that's exactly how your zombie movie read, too.
Oh,
it's
my
like
God.
the zombie movie watcher's guide to surviving a zombie movie. You know?
For everybody listening, I did in fact write a feature-length script that was like what I regard as the most practical form of zombie survival. Like, these people were very aware. All of these people, particularly one of them, watched a lot of horror movies, so they got it. And that was the point. I wanted to deliver that thing to the audience. It never happened, but I wrote it.
Right.
And that because I wrote it that way because that's my mentality.
Yeah.
I'm in the same boat. I want to be able to point to that thing and go, "Danger, Will Robinson, get the fuck out."
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to die.
But I'm also like, so that is one element of it. But another element of it is just, I guess it would be a morbid curiosity.
That's also on my list there. I'd say there are probably 4 or 5 things. Morbid curiosity is a perfect, exact, like, pin it to the wall description of it. I can't explain that motivation. Like, that's what it is, but I can't further explain it.
Stephen King did, obviously he's like my favorite author. I love Stephen King. I talk about him all the time. So this is no surprise. I'm going to paraphrase him right here instead of saying exactly what he said. But he had an interview with Vanity Fair, or one of those magazines, higher profile magazines, for the release of his recent book of short stories, Bizarre Bad Dreams. And so he said, like, he always gets the question, and this reporter asked him as well, like, why horror? What about horror? You know, why do you want to? Why are you drawn to these horrible things? And Stephen King is like, okay, basically, some things are just part of people from the beginning. Like, my brother and I found a box in the attic that was just a bunch of old bus station paperbacks that my dad used to read before he left. And so within this box, there were several different genres. And one of them had a monster on the cover. And looking at the front of that book, my brother wanted nothing to do with it. And I just knew that's for me. You know? It's just one of those things. It from the beginning, I always found myself slowing down. I wasn't allowed to watch any of them, but walking through the video store, I'd always find myself slowing down and my neck craning toward the horror section. You know, I wanted to see every one of those box covers. I wanted to, because I couldn't get to them. They were so tantalizing. You know? I think it's just a part of some people. And I don't think, and all the horror community talks about how nice everybody is. At the conventions, at the horror movie festivals.
That's what kills me at the end of it all, is that, like, I don't know. I have no idea. I have no numbers on this. But the people who like horror aren't the serial killers.
No. When I finally am done with Pops, for those of you who don't know, I do a web series called Platoon Power Squadron I've been working on for almost 7 years now, and we're getting into the home stretch here, the final year. But when I'm finally done with that and I start writing the other things that have been on my mind for a long time, I have a book that I want to write, and it's called Halloween Men, and it's about that distinction between the people who are killers and the people who just enjoy horror. And I'm very, like, I've been thinking about it for a long time. I just really want to do that.
No, I think that'd be great, because that's another thing that I wouldn't, to my knowledge, as a viewer, as an individual, I cannot say I have seen that distinction.
Well, no, but it's also very niche audience. But I think that's
True.
part of what internet culture appeals to. Like, you can find your niches.
Like you were saying, be specific.
Be specific. Be specific.
Because you want whatever promise you're making to the audience should be clear, and the delivery of that should be happening in full. And I know that you will deliver everything that you've ever said. I'm going to do this thing. It is that thing. Period. Whether or not somebody likes it is a different story. Like you said, not everyone's about horror, but for those who do and they hear it, they go, "Oh, I like that idea.
Yeah.
I'm going to pay attention to that thing."
Well, I'm also worried because the delivery of we don't have to talk about Halloween Men right now, but the delivery of it is a little more drama than it is horror for the most part, with a very extreme horror turn at a certain point. So it might be too horror for the drama crowd and too drama for the horror crowd, but we'll see.
And then for a totally separate point, I'd say at that point you do what you want.
Yeah.
Like, ultimately, when you are in full control because you don't have some production company to answer to or something. You just execute. You should. I think for anybody who creates, you should execute your vision as best as you can, as true to yourself, when you've worked to make it as best as it can be.
I agree, man, and that's about that specificity. And the only thing you can really do is try to, you can do a whole bunch of things. You can do whatever you want. You can try and make something commercial, but I think the best line of defense always is to do something that inspires you, that you are passionate about, that excites you, and that specificity will at least draw in the people who feel the same.
Yes, absolutely. The people
and feel honest to them.
Oh yeah, no, I agree. It's funny you put it that way because one of my favorite quotes of any creative person I'm a fan of is Andrew Bird in this one interview. It's just in a classroom.
Also from the North Shore of Chicago.
Yes. There's no bias here. He said in just this really casual interview, as most of his are, that when he knew people in bands when he was younger, like in his teens and his 20s, who would get signed, they would break up when their contract was over. And he said that he thought that was really sad because that people first should make music for themselves.
Yeah.
And like you just said, and like he says in this interview, the people who like it will follow. And that is all you can expect of anything. You should ultimately do things for yourself. I think that's part of how we get good movies.
Absolutely.
Usually is that when someone says, I want to do this thing this way, the way I like it, and when they do that well enough, like you said, the group of people who go, hey, I like that thing, give me that thing, they flock to it and they do it.
But that's also part of the problem too, is because especially creative people, it's everybody is ever evolving. Like Her says, It's very hard for two people to mature in the same way at the same time. But for the purposes of this, like what most people know me for would be the superhero stuff, the superhero comedy stuff. Whereas this would be a horror drama, which is what is appealing to me at this moment.
Right.
But it wouldn't appeal to probably even half that audience.
Right.
Maybe even a quarter would be interested in following me to that place. So if you go where you want, so maybe those bands had said what they wanted to say with that style of music, you know?
Perhaps.
It's one of those things. It's another part of the reason people's YouTube channels go dormant all the time. It's because they stop caring about that particular thing and they want to talk about something else. And then when people don't want to hear them talk about that other thing, they're like, well, whatever, I don't care. I'm going to do something else.
Sure.
You know? It's that everybody always wants to be doing something else.
Basically.
It's how we are. So only the people who get known for a thing and have to depend on doing that same kind of thing when it becomes their career are going to continue on doing that thing, because eventually you're going to get tired of this one thing that you do.
Unless you're J.K. Rowling.
Well, no, I'm sure she was ready for book 7 to end. And I'm sure she is going back to it now because of... She saw another opportunity for another story that popped into her head.
Kind of,
sure,
but I think she's going back to it because Casual Vacancy didn't do that well.
No, sure, and neither did her detective book once it came out.
And she went, screw it, let's go back to Harry Potter.
Well, I mean, to a degree, because she never needs to write another thing in the world ever.
Oh no.
But I think you can miss that kind of interaction, that something that you say and have so many people consume it, and
have them
that conversation happen.
Practically worship you. Yeah.
Well, I mean, maybe not even the worship, but the idea that you create something and that it affects somebody in such a moving way, and that that it means so much to them, that I think could probably be pretty addictive.
I could see that. Maybe that's part of why horror is that.
Maybe, but it's just fun to watch with other horror fans too.
No, that's true. But you know, it's one of the things I think why people like horror.
Why?
It's definitely why I like horror. Is kind of two sides of a coin ish. One is the concept of survival. This has a lot to do with The Road.
Yeah. I didn't like The Road though.
Oh God, things I didn't know.
Yeah. Too slow. Too slow.
I love it. See, I love it. I'm a fan of it. I've read it, and
I haven't read it. I only saw the movie.
Phenomenal book. Great movie. Better book. Cormac McCarthy, who also did No Country for Old Men.
Yep.
Which is also a spectacular book. Just beautiful.
I haven't read any Cormac McCarthy.
Beautifully written. It's very, very good. I like the idea of thinking, and I actually figured this out with my parents. I actually have a really good story about this concept of survival with my parents. So before I get to how that ties into the road, for the longest, I was always trying to egg my parents onto talking about the zombie apocalypse. Now, let me make something clear. I don't want it to happen. Seriously, I don't want...
of course not.
No one wants that.
No one wants the zombie apocalypse.
No. Elizabeth is nodding her head yes. No. I don't want millions of people to die and then for me to live in a constant state of fear of not... Worse than being bitten is... Am I going to die of dehydration? Am I going to die of infection from some disease because we have no regular medicine? That's how most people would die in the zombie apocalypse.
Well, no, absolutely. And also scarcity of food.
No, that's what I'm saying. It's starvation, dehydration, and medical problems.
Let me tell you something else, buddy. As soon as an outbreak of that scale happens, it's the death of the movie industry. So what's the point of even living?
Right. Just kill yourself. Done. Save yourself the suffering. But no, so for the longest, I tried to get my parents on this train to talk about it.
Yeah, at least so they have an escape plan when it goes down.
No, this is what it's building to. So
I'm so sorry.
No, that's fine. You got it. Like you had the foresight. Friggin', I finally get him to talk about it. And when they do, the floodgates open, and we figured out we're not gonna have cars because cars rely on gas,
Absolutely.
and that would be gone.
And roads.
Roads and gas. Two things that would the roads would be clogged up with accidents out the wazoo.
Yeah.
Literally everywhere.
Yeah, and you live in a major city.
Yup.
Good luck.
Yep. Nope. Hey, get out of Chicago right now when a fucking zombie apocalypse is happening. No thanks. And then again, gas running out very quickly. And God knows what else happening. If your car breaks down in any way, shape, or form, all those car parts are going to likely be gone forever in a new form. You'd probably be pulling from old car parts or whatever. We would ride bikes.
Sure.
We'd ride bikes because you can carry... Your wheels would be fine.
Yeah.
You can reuse tires for a very long time. All you need are inner tubes. You have a hand pump, which will also last you for a very long time. It's not electricity based.
Are you staying in Chicago?
I'm not going
in the zombie apocalypse?
Hell no. We're going to Florida.
Okay.
Why? Because you need two things.
Warmth.
No, seriously, because seriously, if no electricity,
Yeah.
if say there was something, not necessarily the zombie apocalypse, something that took the grid down,
Yeah.
and it's winter,
Yeah. Welcome to World War Z.
you're going to die.
Yeah.
You're going of freezing to death. You won't be able to stay warm enough long enough.
No,
you run
but
out of
if-
stuff to burn.
But the zombies were turned as World War Z book spoiler. That helped defeat the zombies in the tundra of Canada.
Oh no, that's true. But it's still then you're not fighting the zombies. You're fighting nature.
Yeah.
And then you're getting your multiple forms of conflict, and that's what makes for good literature or any form of story. But I digress. So we determined that we would book it to Florida.
Sure.
We would go to Florida because you want a source of water. You want a place where you can grow food year round because we can all very easily live on strictly vegetables. Even if all you could grow was 3 kinds, you'd be okay.
Yeah.
You'd do just fine. You wouldn't be great, but you'd do okay. And you don't freeze to death.
Yeah.
And I feel with something like The Road, there's no one place to go. There's no one salvation, but it's the idea of, I think, why people like things like survival stories, and that in part ties into horror, is what would you do?
Yeah. Oh, sure. The conversation.
What would you, even if it's just internal,
Yeah.
as a singular viewer, before the movie's even over, you think to yourself, like,
I wouldn't do that.
When everyone's
I wouldn't
going,
do that.
no, don't go down that fucking dark hole, you fucking idiot. What the fuck are you doing? Like, you always feel like you're such an idiot. Or not you, like the person you're watching is an idiot. You go, I'd never do that.
Yeah.
Like I said, and that also sort of ties into, like, we're ready.
Yeah.
If Jason Voorhees ever comes out of Camp Crystal Lake, we're ready for him.
Yeah.
But in part, it's reinforcing, like, a sense of self-strength that
Yeah.
you would be capable of not dying in a dire situation. I think in that weird way it's kind of empowering that you go, I know I wouldn't be that stupid.
No, that's fair, but it's also why horror games are scarier than horror movies, video games, because you are responsible in
For
the
your
moment for
actions.
dealing with the horror.
And that's when you come to learn everybody does stupid shit.
Yep.
Everybody, like, some things in horror movies, like tripping for no reason, that's just bull. Like, that's whatever. But, like, there are some games where you just get wrecked because you don't see it coming.
Yeah.
And that's why, to lead to a small note, that I very much endorse the idea of a friend of mine said he would love to see a movie, and I thought this, but never really said it out loud. He said he'd love to see a horror movie where all the people who are involved, who are trying to be killed, all they do are make the right decisions. All they do is the logical good thing, and they still get killed.
Sure.
That'd be great, because a lot of horror relies on people being. You'd think they had half their brain.
They
missing.
did this. This was a big thing in a movie I recently watched, and okay. Not everybody did it, but Halloween H2O. Okay.
Yeah, there's a bunch. No, I agree.
Yeah. That woman. They start out with the woman coming home, and something looks off, and instead of investigating, she runs outside and goes to the neighbors immediately.
That's what I do. If I come home and my back door is open, I'm staying outside and I'm calling 911.
Yeah, and she did, and they called the cops and everything. They did everything right, and even in the beginning, like, the cops are outside, and she's still trying her best. She breaks a window. She's trying to get their attention. She's doing everything right, and she still gets iced.
And that's okay. It's messed up, but that's okay, because you can look at that and go, yeah, a person would do that, wouldn't they?
Exactly.
And I like that idea. I like that would, because that would
100%.
resonate. That would resonate even more with people, because they go, wow, I would do that. Oh God, even if I did do that thing, I'd be screwed. That's even more terrifying.
Yeah.
Is seeing logical people die.
H2O is great.
It's
I love
fun.
H2O.
H2O is fun.
Yeah.
It's scary as all hell.
And it has more, like we were talking, every time the microphone turns off, we talk about how important conversations in movies are. And that is the Halloween movie that has the most character-based conversation, specific personality, perspective, and relationships. And it makes for a much more involving movie every time.
Well, arguably, you do get a lot of that in the original Halloween too,
But they're not talking about
important stuff. They're just shallow, and
No.
I'm okay with
which is
that.
great. Yeah, no, because they're teenagers and they're talking about stuff that is pertinent to those teenagers. That's 100% true. And Halloween H2O was afforded the luxury of looking back on the trauma of the first movie and exploring that from the perspectives of the characters.
Which is
what it does to her relationship with her son, what it does to her life in hiding. All that stuff, that led to really interesting character conversations.
Yeah.
H2O, bro.
Bruh. And then, so the other side of this coin that I regard, and sometimes it depends on how you view it and what the movie is, but as weird as it sounds, because most horror movies are fictional.
Yeah.
Like there is no blockbuster about Gacy. The closest you get is
no
It.
blockbuster. Yeah.
The closest you get is It.
And that's highly fantasy based.
Right. So, this is not a situation in which case people are going, yeah, the real life bad guy got what's coming, but people like a sense of justice.
Yeah.
People,
and this is old school eye for an eye justice stuff.
And it's
same with revenge.
Yeah, it's really, as bad as it sounds, it can be really satisfying to watch this awful being get what's coming.
There's
to him.
there's no question that a lot of that has to do with the innate get what you deserve bloodlust.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And
inside of us.
Yeah.
Inside of us as human beings. And a lot of people will want to deny that in themselves. So seeing these movies is like, but that's not right. That's not how it should be. There's the whole turn the other cheek thing, which is great. In your real life, if you want to be the better person, the more evolved person, great. But we all want to bludgeon the person who hurt us.
I was just going to say, yeah, you want to try and be the better person when you have a chainsaw coming for your neck? Like, I forgive you. Like, that's not going to happen.
Oh, your reenactment is going to happen. Yes, you will get chainsawed in the neck.
Yeah.
But so that's what we get when we get dude. Blue Ruin is an awesome revenge movie.
I still need to see it.
Awesome revenge.
Movie. It's still. I know we've talked about it. I still just haven't.
Yeah, check it out.
It's on the list.
I think this is a good note to end on. I think it's a good note to go out on. Is everybody see Blue Ruin? And watch H2O.
Everyone.
And we all have the bloodlust, but we're all evolved enough not to
actually
on it.
do it.
Yeah.
As weird as it is, it's not really a guilty pleasure because I fully admit to the fact that I like watching gory stuff. Like, I love it, but I don't know. That's it's almost a guilty pleasure. It's this thing that you don't want to admit to, but it's true.
I admit to it more and more, and people just have to deal with it. Is what I've come into, because I know I'm a nice person. I'm a nice guy.
Right.
I hold I'm a contributing member of society. I like a lot of different stuff, and this is just one aspect that I tend to focus on a lot. It's true, but it's one aspect of what I enjoy, and it's entertainment, and that's what it is. And I hate when real life horrors happen, obviously.
Right, like
I hate watching the news. I hate when these attacks in Paris happen and all of Facebook is
and
inescapable.
here recently, yeah, it's not good. That's when you go, no, that's not good, because we know that's real, because real people are being hurt, and that's bad. Like, and that's what's insane. Like, if anyone ever actually judges somebody for watching horror, it's like you are the scary thing. You're the monster.
Yeah,
because you have to judge people based on their actions.
Yeah.
And like you said, like every person I've ever known who thoroughly enjoys horror tend to be some of the nicest people ever.
Super nice.
And it's like the people who hate on that are the people who scare me. That really is the case. They're the real horror.
All right. You know they're doing an American remake of Martyrs right now.
Whoa.
Yeah.
I don't want it.
I don't want
Leave
it
it
either.
alone.
I know.
All right, everybody. This is definitely where we're gonna end it.
Yeah. But you can't say that it's gonna ruin it, because it'll never ruin the original. The original will always be awesome.
I'm just saying. It's like the remaking of Poltergeist. You don't need it. It's
no,
unnecessary.
It's what's unnecessary. That's true, and it will never be satisfying to the people who already know the original, because they already know what's coming. Even if it ruins a lot of every element of the storytelling, just because you know what's gonna happen.
Right. Yeah. It's not. Sorry.
And,
Okay. Yes.
And
yes, that's
Martyrs.
what I mean
Part of what Martyrs is like sitting there and being like, oh my God, what is gonna happen now?
Martyrs, everybody, is a French horror film, as shown to be by Jake.
Part of that new wave French horror, which is like new wave extreme.
It's
French extreme.
Because this I will leave spoilers free.
Yeah.
Because this is definitely not something I ever, unless we dedicate.
But it's brutal, you guys. It's brutal.
It's brutal, but every ounce of blood is accounted for and has meaning.
Yeah.
Every action by every single person makes sense
to that person,
to the human being.
Yeah. And
is shown why it makes sense to them.
But it's messed up ride.
And is entirely. I've never seen anything like it.
No.
I'll leave it at that. Watch it. Martyrs.
If you are ready for it, if you think you can handle it.
No one's ready for it. We weren't.
Yeah, no, it's true.
We, on a personal level, to let you guys know, we are very well versed in the world of horror.
Yeah.
And we watched it. The two of us watched it with a friend of mine, and I cringed. I freaked out. I sharply inhaled more times than I could count. And it takes a lot on a personal level. It takes a lot to make me do that.
Sure.
And it wasn't needless. There was a phenomenal story behind it. There was phenomenal motivation behind why these people were doing the things they were doing.
Well, phenomenal maybe, but like well explored. And it comes down to perspective and conversation and theme and all of those things. It is a movie that hinges a lot on the ideas within it.
Yes.
And that holds a lot of weight for us.
Yes.
Thanks for joining us, guys.
End scene. Finn. Thank you for listening. My name is Andrew Sellers.
And I'm Jake Jarvie.
You listen to The Whole Ball of Wax, where we talk about movies and stuff. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Thanks, man. That was fun.
That was awesome.